one. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Project Egg Show. I'm your host, Ben Gothard, and today we have the honor of speaking with Karla Singson. How you doing today, Karla?
Hey Ben, and hello to everyone who's watching or listening to us right now. I'm doing good. I just came home from a trip in California as well, so I know you also recently traveled. So I hope you're feeling better and refreshed.
Yeah, you too. You too, and I'm so glad that that we could do this today because I really want to ask you, what is your story?
Oh, it's a pretty long one, but I'll make it short. I grew up in the Philippines, and I just recently moved here, like literally a month ago, and I graduated very early. I graduated at 19, and I was kind of an achiever. So I had a few public speaking awards. I had some writing awards. I was like at the top class, and so a president of the debate varsity. So I was very arrogant, and I thought, you know what? Companies will be fighting to hire me. Life's gonna be awesome. But when I went out to the real world, I realized that I'm very much unemployable. So I graduated at 19 because I entered college at 15. And so even though I thought I was this rock star of the show, I was actually I was a flight risk. Nobody wants to hire a teenager. Nobody wants to hire a teenager who has too many opinions. Nobody wants to hire a teenager who thinks she's smarter than everyone else. So I thought I did well, but I had a hard time finding a job for myself. And so that kind of broke my heart. And the only job I got for quite a while, so I was in some jobs for like a month, and the only place in the world that I had was in an ad agency, and they hired me as a writer. So I started out as a writer at an ad agency, but then the office life became too boring for me and too routinary. So I went to freelance writing. But on the side, I had a flower shop, an online delivery flower and gift shop that I literally ran during my lunch break when I was employed. And after and after work, or sometimes I would catch a quick break at like 3 p.m. I would like make the flowers. It was just on the side. So that was a business that I became serious about. And then eventually I also took on event planning as a business, and I started with that business through emceeing. So fast forward 10 years from that, I built this flower shop to become a franchise, and we have 12 locations in the Philippines. And the corporate event planning company, I've built it to a nationwide event planning company, and now we're expanding here in the United States. And I've got some partners, and we're planting our roots here in Las Vegas.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
if that's the short story, what's the long story?
Well, the long story is, that I've had a lot of failed businesses along the way. I've learned the hard way that going into something solo with your own idea and your own hard work is always better than having a partner who's just half into it. And having the right partner takes a while to find out, not if they're right, or if they're okay, actually, but to find out uh, for yourself if you can work with a partner. So I learned that the hard way. Another thing I learned the hard way are, if you find any single red flag in an employee, you should let go of them as early as you can. Some I know we may have good intentions, and as entrepreneurs, we love to provide jobs. We want to grow, but we also want to help other people and give meaning and help the community and stuff like that. And sometimes this kindness gets in the way of making the right decisions for your business. So, I sometimes I get frustrated because it literally happened to me just this month. I invested in this person, and I really believed in her, and I believe she was smart, but then I've been seeing red flags, but I kind of like, I told myself it's on me. I should be able to lead her. It's one of those things where, like, those experiences where a girl would try to date this guy and she knows he's bad for her and she thinks she could change him. So I had like the employer version of that. And I thought I could change her, but I couldn't, and it frustrated me and we had to let her go. Well, she actually just left without saying anything. So that made me sad, but also once again, it's another painful experience. And maybe the last thing I would say would be part of the long story is that the money is always the easiest thing, actually. Like, getting money, like, you have an idea in mind and you want to make it happen, or you have a business and you want an expansion and you're confident about it, or you have an investment that you're absolutely sure about. Actually finding those things out and learning those things and hiring and taxes, those are the things that are quite challenging, but getting to the money is actually one of the easiest things, especially if you're out there and helping people and doing good work, good honest work, and high quality work. It's not that difficult, actually.
I really want to talk about that more because so many people are at that stage where they're just doing things
Mm,
and they're spending a lot of time working. And for
mm,
those who are just listening, that was totally in air quotes, the word working,
yeah.
but not making any money. And they're like, oh my goodness, I'm so busy, but I'm not making any money. Like, how do you get to the money? And once you get there, like, what really are those hard things? I know you mentioned them, but like, I want to go step by step and like really dig into them because I think this is such a valuable opportunity to talk about these things.
You're right. That's true. So I would say ask yourself in your business, what is the smallest, simplest thing that most people would pay for? So let's use my business as an example, flower shop. So what is the smallest, easiest thing that people usually pay for? Flowers. Guys buy girls flowers. We buy our mom flowers. We congratulate our girlfriend, our gal pal, our boss, whatever. We get them flowers. So would they pay for flowers? Okay, they would. And then what is the other thing that they would pay for so that those flowers are more valuable for them? So I found out in my gift shop, and this is what I teach my all my franchise owners, is that what people are really paying for is the element of surprise and that feeling that they have the gift delivered to them. So that's why if you buy a dozen of roses in Walmart, it's 11 bucks. But if you want them delivered to your girl, it's 48 bucks, right? But the gas used for that's probably like what, $1 probably. The labor used for that, let's say 10 bucks. So the value is, but guys would pay all day for that kind of money to make their girl happy, and with social media for that memory to last. And that's what they pay for. So if you are struggling to find money in your business, find the core thing. So in marketing, we call that the core benefit. Find the core benefit of your product and then find the other things around it that people are so happy to pay for. Because there are things that we would pay for, but we're not really happy to pay for them. Like, oh, okay, I guess, like, fine, I'll pay this. It's like insurance when you buy your flight ticket. You want to fly to Miami? Okay, here's your flight. You want insurance? You're like, oh, fine, I guess. You're not delighted to pay for it, but there are things that we would be happy to pay for. So you just look for that. So let's try another example, like a product. So if I have this pen, you want to sell a person a pen because they need a pen and they may always need a pen, and there's different ways that people need a pen. So they might need a special kind of pen, they might need a pen fast, they might need a pen all the time, they might run out of pens, so that's a subscription model. So see, it's just if they might need a pen fast, that means rush delivery. So that's your upsell. If they need a pen all the time, that's a subscription model. So, if they need a pen and a refill, that's an upsell and a subscription model down there. So you structure your business according to what your client needs, and there is always a small price thing, a super basic thing that gets them in the door and that they would be happy to pay for. And you just look for that.
So what I'm hearing is the key is to identify one super specific problem to solve
Yes,
and be really, really good, like rock solid at solving that problem. And
that's right.
then once you've identified that one problem to solve and you rock solid there, then start thinking, okay, if I'm solving this problem for them, what other problems that are like bolt-ons to what I'm already doing exist, and can I solve those also? And so then you have that foundation of the rock solid solution, solving that one problem, and then you just bolt on additional things that you're solving on top of that that are very related.
Right. And sometimes you would know that through market research, and sometimes you also learn that through feedback. So it's always helpful to ask your clients, what else? Or how are you doing? And a really good example that was a big part of how my revenue grew in the flower shop. So aside from the franchising model was amazing because I was able to really grow my brand in the Philippines, and I was able to teach this to other people. So I was able to help some stay-at-home moms become business owners, and aside from that, there's a huge like cash, cash chunk that came with it. So that's awesome. But aside from that, I learned that because I've had a flower shop for 10 years, I've had guys who bought flowers from me since 5 years ago. And one guy just asked me out of the blue, "Hey, Karla, do you sell engagement rings?" And I'm like, "No, but I could, you know. And if I sell flowers, I would probably make like 30, at least $30, 30 to maybe 100 per bouquet, depending on how grand it is. But if I sell engagement rings and I sell diamonds, I make at the very least $300 per piece." So I'm like, oh my God, why didn't I think about this before? So we started selling engagement rings, and then we've been selling engagement rings for 2 years. So, and obviously the margins are way different. And that was a breakthrough for me as well. So you do your own research, you listen to your clients, and there's one question that I would love for you to really remember. And this question is, what other risks can I take from the hands of my customer? So if you're selling a service, I realize that at the core of the service that you're selling is actually a risk that you're taking from them. So I have an online business, which is a virtual assistant recruitment business. And it's very easy and it's simple. I'm taking out the risk of you gambling on other platforms, gambling by announcing on Facebook, you wasting your time interviewing people and believing you're not that good at hiring anyway. So that's the risk I'm taking away. If you go to a barber shop, you're taking the risk of cutting your own hair and looking stupid, right? And that's why we go. So any service, car wash, that's a risk-taking social contract. That's what a service business is about. So if any one of you guys have a service-based business, always ask, and you're kind of lost in your marketing, ask yourself, what risks am I taking from the hands of my customers? So I found that as a good mental exercise to be really, really helpful.
Curious to really learn more about that core foundational problem that we're trying to solve here, because I feel like identifying that one thing is really hard for some people because they're not really sure what they're the best at. and they're not really sure what their area of genius is. And so it's hard for them to parlay that into identifying this one niche thing, and that makes the whole thing difficult, because if you don't have that foundation, you can't do all these other wonderful things. So how do you really identify that core problem that you're trying to solve? And maybe it even goes back to, how do you identify what you're the best at and what you should be even thinking in terms of, in order to figure out that core problem that you're trying to solve?
Okay, wow. I totally agree with you that it's not as easy as it sounds. And when you say like the thing that you're best at, so in the entrepreneurial world, they call that your zone of genius, right? But I was talking to someone just like a few days ago, and she actually told me that her zone of genius is different from her place of joy. So that was really deep for me. So she was basically sharing, and she was sharing to me how she's absolutely good at one thing, but she's not happy doing it. But she's really good at it, and we all have that. And we get lost into listening to advice like follow your passion, motivate yourself. But you gotta know your priorities. So if you have a zone of genius and you have a place of joy, and you can't make them into a business right now, I would say stick to your zone of genius for your business, because it's easier to make money that way. And then you can use that to fund whatever is your place of joy, to build your place of joy, right? So for a lot of people, it's like traveling. I love traveling. Everyone loves traveling, but not everyone needs to have a travel agency, right? Or not everyone invented Expedia or TripAdvisor and went public, something like that. So stick to your zone of genius. And then since it's your zone of genius and you're absolutely good at it, you know that you can help people. So find the people, the exact person that you can help, and what kind of problem that they have, and really study that problem. I would absolutely advise you talking to your customers. Like, if they're buying this thing for $10, what will make them buy it for 4? So maybe they'll say, I know the value is $10, but I'll buy it for 4 if there's a small scratch, but I can still use it. And then ask them, what would make you buy it for 20? And they'll probably tell you, I'll buy it for 20 if you can deliver it right now, or I'll buy it for 20 if you can add a cupcake to it or something like that. So sorry, now you know my place of joy. Sugar. I would recommend talking to the client. If you're lucky enough to have a mentor, even if you're starting out, you have like an uncle who's business savvy, you have a friend who just had an exit, it would be nice to, ask them, in a respectful way, you respect their time also, to ask them for advice. And another thing is you keep your eyes open and you listen. And it would also be helpful to research about other companies. They're doing the same thing as yours. So I got very lucky because during the operations of my flower shop, my sister actually worked for 1-800-Flowers. So it was her summer job in the Philippines. So I don't know if you know this, but since a lot of Filipinos are really good English speakers, companies in America, AT&T, Verizon, they have call centers in the Philippines. Western Union. So 1-800-Flowers outsourced their call center to the Philippines, and my sister worked for them. So I learned a lot about what makes people really frustrated, if they have a bad delivery or something bad happened. And I also learned what makes people frustrated to a point that they would leave a bad review. So it's lack of communication. It's when they try to reach out but they weren't, so that's a clincher. So I learned these things by kind of doing my own research, so and at the end of the day, you got to help yourself. You can't just sit there and be frustrated that no one's helping you. Entrepreneurship is so hard, it's lonely at the top. That's not true. You're just being lazy. You're not like Ben and me doing a podcast on Labor Day, So I think that's what a lot of people just fail to do. Really find their ways around it. There's a problem, you just gotta find your way around it and be open.
One of the things that has come that have come up a few times is to talk to your customers
Mm-hmm.
and to get feedback from them. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious, let's say you don't have any customers.
Right.
You're just getting started and you don't have any customers at all. How do you identify who it is that you want to serve? Because what it would seem like is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, or I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but it would seem like if you at least know the person you're trying to help, right, your ideal customer, more air quotes for those who are listening, not watching, you can then reach out to them, figure out where they are, reach out to them and ask what problems you can help them solve.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like that's a very easy path to go down, and then just solve them. But if you don't have any customers, you don't know who you're trying to solve, then what do you do?
Right. Definitely talk to a mentor, someone you trust. Do your research. Or I'm a firm believer of earning your first few testimonials and feedback, as in do free work. So I've been in business for 10 years. I've started a business 10 years ago, and I've started another business last year in May, and I started another business 2 months ago. And it's always the same. I would earn my first few testimonials by giving service for free, and I would, and as if it's good, it's a testimonial. If it's bad, it's a feedback. So really, you're paying your way towards being a better entrepreneur. You're not sitting around and whining. So even in copywriting, in any business, even landscaping, I know this 14-year-old kid, super amazing. When I was in Canada, I heard this like short interview on the radio, and there was a kid, he was 14, and he ran a landscaping service in their neighborhood. And he had an older brother who knew how to build a landing page. So he built a landing page on landscaping, and it was like free coffee while we mow your lawn, something like that. What was the Canadian coffee? Tim Hortons, yeah, something like that. So free Tim Hortons coffee, and the copy was like, sip your coffee while you like smell your fresh lawn, freshly cut lawn, something like that. And if you don't like it, your coffee and the lawn is free. But if you do, just pay for the lawn, the coffee's on us or something. So oh my God, that was amazing. Because it's so simple. It's so simple. And it shows your market that you're actually there to help. It shows your market that you want to be better at what you're doing. And you may be starting right now, but you're out there and you have a mission to stay in this industry, that you're here to stay. So I like that. I like that sending a message thing, because it's your first bit of PR. So I believe in the power of PR. So that's your first bit of PR. And I would say definitely do a lot of research. You can even research the same companies in other countries. You can find some insight there. Talk to a friend, a trusted person who is business savvy or who may have invested in a similar business before. And number 3, earn your first few testimonials and first few clients. And if you serve them well and they tip you awesome and you earn your testimonials, and if the service was bad or kind of needs improvement, then you get a feedback. And you win.
So I still think that there's this core of this core issue of uncertainty of I don't know even what sort of business I want to be in, or I don't know who I want to serve. And so how do we solve that problem for the listeners and watchers? And I want to share where I'm coming from. I
Right.
literally want to eradicate all excuses so that there's literally no room for anybody to say, well, I didn't know this, or I didn't know that, or, y'all didn't talk about this, so I couldn't do it. I want to tackle every single possible opportunity for anybody to say, well, I just didn't know what to do. And just let's get that out of the way so that the only thing that people can do is be successful and crush it.
Yeah. Well, you're right. That's quite a difficult question because people vary in terms of how much they know themselves. There are a lot of entrepreneurs who are super self-aware, and they're very good communicators, and they can talk themselves into wanting something, and they can talk themselves into not being mad at something. They're in control of their emotions, and we all work towards being that kind of person. But I also agree with you, that there are just people who are kind of lost, and they're not that self-aware, and it's not even their fault. Their upbringing might be different, their environment might be different. They may not have grown up to a lot of Tony Robbins or something like that. They might not read books like philosophy books all their lives. That's okay. So personally, I'm not very confident about this advice, and I don't want to just answer your question to answer your question. But if I want to find out who I want to serve, I would honestly just find the things that make me happy and the things that I'm good at. For me personally, my confidence comes from my competence. If I'm good at something, it gives me a sense of achievement. And so I would also think, who might want this? So that this is selfish. Who might want this service so that I can do it and I can achieve it and I feel better about myself? And that's okay. It's okay to admit that it's a selfish reason, because at the end of the day, you're gonna ask them for money anyway. So no one can call you selfish at that point because it's a fair exchange. So I would just say, what do I want to do? Oh, I like arranging flowers. They make me happy. That's how I was like when I was 19. I love arranging flowers. I love gift wrapping. I love that. But now I don't have time for that. Like, just fucking kill me if I have to like wrap another gift. Here's an Amazon gift card. Help yourself. So, it changes. These things change. But I'm happy. I'm happy that I'm in this position that I can just lead these other franchise owners. I'm happy. And I'm still happy to teach flower arrangements once in a while, only to my dealers, only because they're fun people to be with. And we'll do it over like a bottle of champagne or something. So that's different. So that's what I thought about. I was like, oh, this makes me happy. So what else? Who else would want this? So I can do more of this and I'll be happier. So I guess that's my simple way of answering the question. And that's my own, that would be my path. That would be my path.
Well, I think that's awesome. And that's totally what I was asking for. So I appreciate you talking about that. And, I also think for those who may be thinking like, well, I don't even know what makes me happy, or I don't even know like what I'm really good at. I would even like to offer a suggestion of think about who you want to be or who you want to be like. Or when you close your eyes, if somebody was like, who is the coolest person that you can think of? And then you're like, oh, yeah, that person. Why? Why do you think they're cool? What about them is so drawing or attractive to your thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
And that could then lead you to either you want to do what they do, or those could be the kinds of people who you decide to go help. And then you can go talk to those kinds of people, because then you have an ideal customer. Then you can go talk to them and be like, hey, Mr. or Mrs. cool person that I want to be like one day when I grow up. What can I help you with? And then you start solving their problems. So I think there's always a way. And if it matters enough to you, then you'll find out a way to do it and you'll make it happen.
That's absolutely right. Thank you for sharing that. That's super helpful. Because it brings you back to your purpose in life, which is to walk or run towards the person you want to be. And my boyfriend told me this quote like 3 years ago when we just started dating. He told me, if you have a big goal, and let's say, for purposes of example, a financial goal, I want to make $10 million this year. So he told me, you shouldn't ask yourself, what should I do to earn $10 million? He told me that every day we should wake up and ask ourselves, who do I need to be so that $10 million comes easy to me? And that totally blew my head. And it totally changed how I look into the things that I do. Like I've stopped, like I've mellowed so much on drinking, and I've been working out better, eating better, and I just changed the person that I wanted to be. And then the business just followed.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
That is amazing advice. Because seriously, you can't expect the things in your life to change if you stay the same.
Yeah.
There's just no way. I mean, it will continue down the path that it has always been on because you are the person that you've always been. So I'm curious though. I love that you talked about, our purpose is to become and run towards becoming the person that we want to be. How did you come to that philosophy? Like, when was that moment where you're like, yes, that's the purpose of life?
Well, it has a lot to do with how I grew up. I was a super overachiever, and I didn't even, sometimes I don't even want to be that way. I learned how to read at 2. That's like crazy. I won spelling bees, science bees, math bees. I was like super balanced. And in society standards, I was smart. And not just that, I excelled in sports too. I won table tennis championships. I know, so Asian. And and I won writing contests. I had a journalism award, a national public speaking. So I've looked at these things that I did, and I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just giving examples. And I've always been an achiever. But when I was like in my mid 20s or early 20s, I just started drinking, hanging out with the wrong people, and didn't care about life. Basically, I was just getting by. I dated the wrong people. I ignored, my family. I was a bad person. I was like, and then one day I was just like, where is that person who was winning all the time? Like it was no one's business. Like I was just born to win. Like nothing could stop me. Like, and I was like, that was who I was. And I literally went to my old house, looked at my medals, and I got so emotional. I was like, oh my God. It's like, this is not who I am anymore. So I started taking steps into changing my life. Literally, even my wardrobe was trash. And I left that person who wasn't good for me, but we've been together for a while. And then I started reading more. I was a big reader when I was in elementary and high school. And I thought to myself, I should stop being an embarrassment to my old self. So, and there's something there's a term for that, like you're losing integrity with yourself, like when you don't do the things you say you would, losing face to yourself, something like that. That became really important to me, like who I am when I look at the mirror at night. And I do look at myself in the mirror at night because my skincare regimen has like fucking 16 steps. So so when I'm doing that, I literally look at myself in the mirror and I need to hear like Oprah's voice in my head. And that time I didn't like what I saw. So I started changing that. And it was a wake-up call for me. And now when I look at myself, I remember that kid who always won. And now, I think it's just like nothing can stop me and I can't fail. And even if I would fail at something, if I would learn a lesson that would make it an investment towards my future.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So
And life is short. Life is short to be fucking mediocre. Do you want to be forgettable? Do you want people to say generic shit on your eulogy? No.
Mm-mm.
Like, oh, she was nice. She was kind. Whatever. I don't want to. That's so basic. Like, I want to be basic.
I love that. I love that mentality. So I'm curious, because I think getting back in touch with like who we are as little kids is super important. And it's crazy that we're having this conversation because just, let's see, what's today? Monday? Yeah, just yesterday,
Mhm.
I was in the car and I was driving back from traveling, and I remembered this time when I was like maybe 5 or 6 or something in a play, and I remember the specific like role that I was playing.
Mhm.
And then it occurred to me why I was in that role. And it was like, oh my goodness, I didn't think about that for so long. And it like brought back this intensity of like, whoa, there's this whole piece of me that I haven't really been fully tapping into. And it was like a whole little mini epiphany that happened just yesterday. So it's crazy that we're talking about this.
Aw.
And it's like, it's so interesting to me, this idea of like of tapping back into that, right? And so what I'm curious to learn is, what did it really feel like? And I know you talked about it a little bit, but I want to really focus in on it. What did it feel like when you tap back into that? Like, what were those emotions? What was that journey, that process of getting back into and breaking back into that state of mind? Because to me, that's like an instant change, but it takes a lot of friction to get up to that. So that transition moment is what I'm really curious about.
Honestly, I felt so powerful because for the first moment in my life, I actually realized that I can be different persons. And if when I was a kid, and obviously compared to a kid is stupid compared to us. Like what I'm trying to say is we know more stuff. We know more stuff now. So I know more stuff now than when I was a kid. But also when I was a kid, I was very open. I was very open and I was always learning and reading. And so when I saw that contrast, I'm like, I should be smarter now. So if I achieved those things when I was a kid, I should achieve more now. And you know what I did? I literally signed up and joined competitions again. I I just didn't care. So I was 24 and 24, 25. And I joined a pageant. I know. I joined a public speaking. You were probably like, are there like 5 people in your city? Um, why would you join a pageant? Why would you hurt yourself like that? Anyway, I joined a pageant and joined public speaking. I joined some writing stuff. And obviously, I didn't win most of them, but the public speaking competition brought me to nationals, and I was first runner up. So that was nice. And the pageant was also a national pageant, and that brought me to first runner up. And that was really awesome for me. But this person I was dating told me, do you know what they call the first runner up? It's like the first loser. And I'm like, what the fuck? So that was a time I was like, I gotta stop dating this person. He's bad for me. So, and that was also like kind of the point of we weren't happy for a while, but that was the point where I'm like, I'm so done. I'm so done because I'm trying to change myself. And I don't want to wait like that. And that was just, oh, anyway, so we broke up. And so that was perfect. That was actually a great like jetpack. So like I can just soar. So I was done with this person and I just started getting my mojo back. And I would say it was just uphill from there. I'm still climbing. But it has been uphill from there.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, so sorry, to answer your question, it was the realization of the power that you can actually choose who you want to be, that you actually have a choice. So even if you're addicted to something, if you have anything, I know a lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of people actually, especially here in America, have a food addiction. And that's why I'm so surprised, like the servings here and like the people are really big. Sorry to say that. So if you have an addiction, every single time that you want to do that thing, you remind yourself of that choice and you remind yourself of that power. Because I've been addicted too. I think I've been an alcoholic when I was way younger because I can't go by without a drink every night. And I thought I couldn't sleep if I'm not drunk enough. And then I think I got addicted to sugar. Every meal has to have a cake or something. And, we know that sugar is bad for our brain and these other things. So every time that I would want to do something, I just ask myself, do I really want to do this? Do I want to be this person? And it's a muscle. Eventually, you don't have to ask yourself all the time. You just do the thing that you want to do.
I think that's amazing advice. Amazing advice. And, I really want to acknowledge you for, being willing to talk about these things and to go there because I think it's very powerful. And these are the kinds of conversations and the kinds of things that everybody is affected by. I mean, every single person on the planet. We all were children at one point. We all have dreams. We all have like who we were as a kid and who we are now. All these things are relevant. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that things really matter. Like how you view yourself really, really matters. How you view the world really, really matters. How you interact with people around you really matters. Who you surround yourself with to interact with super duper matters. Like it's all very important. So
Right.
yeah. So I just want to thank you for being willing to go there. And I want to be respectful of your time. So I just have one more question for you.
Okay.
You mentioned being 24 at that catalyst point, which is also really cool because I'm 24 now.
Aw.
And so I want to ask, what question should I specifically be asking you specifically that I just wouldn't think to ask?
Wow. That's difficult. It's probably the most difficult podcast question. Let me see. What do I think that you should ask me that you probably wouldn't ask me? I would say give me a little more idea about how it's like to grow in a developing country, with your culture literally sometimes unconsciously, sometimes unconsciously wanting to keep your head just above water or something like that. Because I've I'm just so tired of, seeing this also in a lot of developing countries that I've visited. And I would say I'm lucky to be able to go where I was able to go, and and to have what I'm able to have. But I grew up with poor parents, and even before that shift when I was 24, I was just getting by. And I cannot say that right now is like the super, like, I'm better than them or something like that. It's just that it's so different, and you have to be super strong, and you have to want something enough to really break out of your environment. And I read this also, um, who you are is not a product of your environment, but your environment is a product of who you are. So it's like what you said, that we always have a choice of who we let around us, of what we're going to do, what we're going to read, or something like that. What media, policing the media that you read and that you consume is very big and very important. And because we have internet, if you're living in a developing country, most likely you will still have access. I mean, of course, if you're listening to this podcast, you have access to the internet. So use that to your advantage. Read a lot of good things, and uh, learn twice as much. Because if you grow up in a developing country, someone else out there in a developed country can easily take what you have just because you weren't working hard enough. And I can't expound on that because this is gonna turn into like a night-long conversation with like 3 bottles of wine. But I would say that it doesn't sound nice when I say it out loud, but it's true. If you grew up in a developing country, you gotta work twice as hard. If you grew up in a developed country, stop being fucking lazy, because you have everything you need. Even here in America, and people are like whining about your president, or whining about certain stuff, basically, but you guys still have it like way above the rest of the world. So I would say I would love to share that to all of your listeners. I'll definitely share this with all of my friends back home in the Philippines, so that they can also be inspired with what you do and your other guests, and they can follow your journey, especially as a 24-year-old, because a lot of kids in that age would need like a leader's voice that they should listen to, but that is also kind of like their bro, like they're not too intimidated to. So thank you for that. Thank you for giving them a channel.
Well, thank you again very, very much, Karla. I really appreciate you carving out the time to chat with me today, and for sharing this time with me. It's been very special. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you as well. I'm very
And
happy to be here.
thank you to everybody who's watching and listening. Y'all rock. You're the best. And I love y'all very, very much. And I'm very grateful that y'all chose to stick with us all the way till the end, because your time is very valuable too. So thank y'all very much. Karla, thank you. And I will see y'all on the next
You're
episode.
welcome. Thank you too. Bye-bye.